There are all kinds of gatekeepers. And I wonder if you might help me. Because I need your help. I'm nothing without you. Truth be told, I'm very aware that I come off as confident. Maybe some people even said arrogant. But if you know me, if you really, really know me, I'm just as broken and insecure and questioning and not knowing as anybody. So I need your help. Yes, I see that bulletin art as the embrace of God, right? But you've heard me say a million times before that we are the hands, we are the feet, we are the arms of God. And so I see and I feel that as your embrace. And I hope and I pray that you feel that too. And not just from me. Because again, I'm just as broken and messed up and insecure as anybody. So sometimes I need a friend to help me out. To come into my office and say, hey, what's up, Pops? I know I just gave it away. So, Josh, if you can put up slide number 1. No one wants to take a flight with a pilot that has not been tested for aptitude and fitness. So I wonder, I've put other professions up here, right? You know, obviously there's medicine, there's law, there's psychology, counselors, there's teaching, there's even athletics, but what kind of aptitude and fitness? So this is a good gatekeeper, right? It's a good gatekeeper. I mean, we need it in engineering, don't we, Wills? You know, if we don't have gatekeepers in engineering, bridges fall down. Keith, buses fall into potholes or sinkholes. This is Pittsburgh, so we call them potholes, right? So those are failures of fitness and aptitude. What other kind of gatekeepers can you think of that are good, that are positive, that are helpful? I see a friend that I haven't seen in a while who plays a lot of hockey. And like my sport of choice, football, it's a very, very violent game. And if you don't have gatekeepers on the ice, usually in striped jerseys, it can get too violent, can't it? And people can get hurt, right? What other kind of gatekeepers can you think of that are a good, positive thing? Andrew, soccer. There's a goalkeeper. Oh my gosh, I didn't think of that one, right? Probably the most valuable player on the team, right? Who really doesn't kick a ball around very much at all, right? But if the other team doesn't score, they don't win, right? Excellent. I love it. I love it. They're a gatekeeper of themselves, okay? Or even the referees on the field. What else can you think of that's a good and a positive gatekeeper? I see one other. Tom. Policeman, you better believe it. I won't go there. If we didn't have policemen, okay, myself and I know some others, like the person running the computer back there, my son, probably would drive too fast. Right, Keith? I know he likes speed and handling and all that kind of stuff too. So yeah, those are kind of gatekeepers that are good. Bob, in theology, we've got gatekeepers, right? Presbytery is like a gatekeeper. Sometimes not so wonderful, right? But hopefully they're getting good people into pulpits. Hopefully they're helping churches do the right things and not be led astray, right? So we have licensing, we have bodies, governing bodies, we have medical standards. And what do these things do? They build trust. They increase the likelihood of positive outcomes. And they create structures that foster accountability and generate effective practices so that bridges don't fall down, so that we live for another day. Well, unfortunately, we're all human, and gatekeepers can become overzealous. And please excuse the examples that I've used. I'll tell you the one down at the bottom. Those are bouncers, okay? Every college town has them, and most of the bouncers are football players, big athletes. And do you know what happens in a big town like Boston? All of a sudden, you have your Northeastern bars, and you have your Boston College bars. Why? And your Harvard bars, and your BU bars. Why? Because the bouncers let their friends in. They're overzealous. And then everyone else has to wait in line. What other kinds of overzealous gatekeepers can we think of? I'm sorry? Spouses. I'm happy I didn't come up with that one, or I might not have one. Yeah. And you know what? Why sometimes do we do that? Why do we become overprotective, overzealous in being a gatekeeper? Maybe because we're insecure ourselves. Maybe because we don't trust the other person. The problem is that our gatekeeping can become weaponized. And it can become very, very addictive, can't it? How many people here can honestly say they've never been an overzealous gatekeeper? I don't see anybody's hands going up. We've all been there. We've all done that. We're all ashamed of it, aren't we? They forget that those helpful limits, that those necessary boundaries are to create trust. Who brought up traffic? Police. Tom, you brought up police. You know, without stop signs, without speed limits, without all of those things, has anyone here ever traveled, like driven in a third world country, in a developing world? It is absolute chaos. In Ghana, Kim's not here, in Ghana, they call speed bumps sleeping policemen. Okay? And they're all over the place. And it's really a dig on them because the police in those countries tend to be pretty corrupt. You have to bribe them. My wife stopped going on a mission to the other side of Africa, to Kenya, to hospitals, because the bribes became too expensive. So they ended up going somewhere else. Oh, other overzealous. So teachers, you ever had a professor or a teacher that was a little bit overzealous, a little bit overprotective maybe? Or maybe they didn't like you, or probably they didn't like themselves. And just to make sure that you know I'm trying as much as I can to not be biased, I put preachers up there. Preachers can become, dare I say too often are, overzealous. I think about white nationalism. A big problem in the American church. Something we fight very hard here at Calvin to avoid, like the plague, and a lot of other churches really embrace. They really embrace their agendas, not perfect love's agenda. They use things like millstones to create fear to bait you into believing and taking it on, to demean, to demote, to damage. Often the most vulnerable. Then there are, next slide please, my son, self-appointed gatekeepers. Oh, I hear you chuckling at that one. We all know them, right? We've all been them sometimes, maybe, if we're honest. The top one I had to sort of make, that's that person who's patrolling the neighborhood without permission, without a permit, self-appointed, minding everyone's business except for the business they should be minding, their own. What about people who call the police because they're uncomfortable with someone else? You ever heard of these stories? You ever seen that? And the truth is, they're just uncomfortable. The other person isn't really doing anything wrong. They're just uncomfortable with the other person. Or maybe their color or their habits. Bullying is a big problem at all levels of life. Don't ever let someone bait you into thinking that bullying only exists in schools, on playgrounds, right? Again, self-appointed gatekeepers. You do realize that when someone is bullying, they're really afraid. Do you know what they're afraid of? They're afraid of you. They're afraid that you're going to take something of theirs. Maybe their place in that social group. Maybe their place in the pecking order. Maybe the way that they like to do things because they can't see or imagine doing things another way. Maybe just because I'm a little bit different and quirky and odd. Bullying is a huge, huge problem. They're doing it because they're afraid of you. They're afraid that you'll take their spot away, that you'll take away their friends, that you'll take away their preferred ways of doing things. And make no mistake about it, when there is a void or a change in leadership, self-appointed gatekeepers spring into action. It is absolute textbook. They try to seize what is not theirs. So, in today's gospel narrative, we have a powerful example of the lure of gatekeeping with the early disciples. Recently, politically motivated headlines on immigration provide probably one of the greatest examples of gatekeeping as a force of evil. The demonization of Haitian immigrants. Yes, in Springfield, Ohio, but even right here in Pennsylvania, in Charleroi. The truth is that many of these cities, including Charleroi and Springfield, asked for the immigrants to come there. We lived in Omaha, Nebraska for more than a decade. If the immigrants don't come, the corn doesn't get picked. The chickens don't get plucked. Literally. It's not our children or even our friends who are doing those jobs. It's the immigrants. They're a regular part of the workforce. These towns received an injection of a new labor force to meet their needs and of the needs of the private manufacturing sector. And the people provided an economic opportunity. It's a win-win. Both benefit, and the entire community flourishes. But some gatekeepers, we'll stay here for a second, Josh. I didn't mean to go too fast, too forward. We also have gatekeepers with banning books. And with voting. Trying to convince us that it's not fair. That it's manipulated by the powers to be, by the deep state. I made this gate a little bit more clear so that you could see Ellis Island. This country was built from immigrants. The chances are that most of you here are not Native American, are not indigenous. The chances are most all of us here are, in fact, immigrants, come from immigrants. It's part of, do you remember when we were kids? And we talked about it being the melting pot. And how great that kind of diversity and the different skill sets was. And somehow that whole idea has been lost. It's disappeared. Why? Gatekeepers who are using fear and anger to block the truth. Next slide, please, Josh. That is the impetus for banning books, for questioning the veracity and the integrity of our elections, for lying about Haitian immigrants and immigrants everywhere. That I'm not even going to say those words. You've heard them. You know exactly what I'm talking about. They use fear as a strong fence by othering differences rather than celebrating it as an intentional and purposeful gift of God. This slide I made the fence around the bulletin art because what does this do? This keeps the beloved community from being the beloved community. This keeps all of those different hands of God from reaching out and supporting us and embracing us. This prevents God's design, which is brilliant and of all colors and all economic statuses and all identities and all political persuasions, from embracing each other and loving each other during the storm and through the storm. We're going to be doing a series starting next week. And I learned something yesterday from Ron and Susan that I thought was just brilliant. Yes, certified mechanics and state inspectors are good gatekeepers. Hopefully they're good, right? I got a text from someone in the back. What Ron and Susan shared with me, I'm sorry. At ease. We need to be at ease. It's an acronym. Attune to eliminating anxiety during this season of election. At ease. Attune to eliminating anxiety during this season of election. That's what the next 5 weeks are going to be about, 4 or 5 weeks are going to be about. That's going to do unto others. I should have named it Attune. I like this better. The way of Jesus is unarguably the way of acceptance and affirmation and welcome. That is belonging. That is the fabric, the foundation of what it is to be human. We're so used to gatekeeping that creates obstacles to entry that the simplicity of belonging to the kingdom, she said it right, the kingdom, the beloved community, the kingdom can be very confusing and even confounding. It's very simple. Acceptance. Affirmation. What's affirmation? It's believing in you and taking a step to help you be you. It's not just believing and accepting. Affirmation is an extra step going out of our way to help the marginalized, the disenfranchised, the hurting, the weak, the poor. And welcome. Friends, the path to belonging is not difficult or hidden, but we have to choose to take the first step. If we don't know the way, there's always a loving spirit with an enlightened, open mind that is able to show us how to take the path that leads to the heart of love. Perfect love that embraces and supports and heals. The path that returns us to love. Amen? Amen. Amen.